We discussed, among other things, the status of Ukraine, the movements of forces and the toll this war is taking on Ukraine. We discussed the events that took place in Bucha, the mass graves, and the repercussions this is going to have. All these things were discussed with President Putin. It was important for me to make a clear statement that war must be ended, that the crimes will be investigated at an international level, and war crimes, and just as the war crimes in Yugoslavia, we also discussed the Istanbul talks process, which I fully support, just as President Erdogan. We discussed the working discussions that are underway, and it was said that the Russian president believes in the talks and that these talks must continue. And now we must ensure that humanitarian corridors are operational for the besieged cities, so that those corridors provide a safe opportunity for civilian people to escape the battle zone. And this was not a friendly visit. We discussed facts and the repercussions of these facts. And this is something the Russian army must ensure, the safety of these corridors and the safety of people. And this is what I wanted to make clear. Questions, please. And this is currently the only format that can lead to success. And so there was no response to that, but the willingness to engage in the Istanbul format is evidence that this is the only format we have to seek for peace. The Ukrainian side had an opportunity to provide access to the International Red Cross Committee, and the Russian Federation also spoke about this. We need to be aware of how the Ukrainian prisoners of war are being treated during this war. So for me, it was very important, and I reported about this to the presidents and chairman of the commission, that it is very important to have a face-to-face talk with the president Putin to discuss the realities of war, to demonstrate, to convey the vision of the European Union, to explain how we see this war, so that the Russian Federation has the real picture. The Russian president says that those were Ukrainians, but this is nothing new. We know this from the former Yugoslavia, and we've discussed the consequences according to international law, including criminal law. And we know what the consequences were in case of the crimes in former Yugoslavia. All war crimes need to be investigated, and we need an international investigation. That's why we have the United Nations that's independent in these international conflicts. And I believe that the international community is able to conduct an effective investigation of such war crimes and to prosecute those responsible. First of all, I clearly stated that we do not share his view of the war in Ukraine, that it is somehow self-defense by the Russian Federation. He still calls it a special military operation, but we're speaking about a war, an invasion of a large country into a smaller country. So we're speaking about an occupation and losses among civilians. There was an offensive towards Kiev, and the forces were insufficient, and now we hear about other goals as well. But what I want to say is that nobody shares his view and his understanding. We need to discuss political issues, of course, but if there is no solution to a political problem, there is no need to attack a country So this is why we're discussing this. I, representing Austria, said that we're ready to provide support to the situation in terms of international justice. And it's the only possibility for the Russian Federation to find out who's responsible for the crimes and to make sure those people are prosecuted. And we need to make sure that this does not happen again. And it was important for me to make this clear to him. Every day of this war costs too many human lives, and the sanctions will persist, and they will be ramped up, and they will have important consequences for the Russian Federation. We might need to do this again and again, but this is something we need to do to make sure the Ukrainian people can live in a safe country. And this is something the international community needs to consider. Well, first of all, we don't have an embargo, and the joint sanctions where Austria is involved are unique in our history. And I discussed this with the heads of the European states and with the President Zelensky. So if he were against this, I would not be visiting. So for me, it's very important to have a face-to-face conversation, because a phone call is one thing, but a personal meeting is another thing. So maybe this will not lead to immediate effects, but every contribution is important. We're talking about peace. What we cannot do is we cannot just wait, cannot just sit and wait or expect that one visit can change the world. But even a small contribution to discussing the horrors of this war, making a personal reference to these things in a real conversation is important. I'm very confident that this will have beneficial results. Thank you.